It sounds like you're going to be induced in a couple of weeks, and first of all, congratulations on that. That's so exciting. But you have some really good questions. Is it going to hurt worse if you're induced? And basically, when can you get the epidural? Now, in order to explain how it's going to feel during labor, let's talk about the natural progression of things if you're not induced first. Up to the days and weeks before delivery, your body starts to release hormones called prostaglandins that act on your cervix and actually ripen and prepare it for labor. Very similar to how a fruit ripens. And if you take a cervix that's not ripe and ready for labor, it usually won't start to dilate or change or do much, even if you have regular contractions. So your body starts to do some prep work leading up to the time of delivery. And then if you spontaneously go into labor, your brain is releasing a hormone called oxytocin that acts on the little cells of your uterus and tells them to contract. And then you start to have regular and intense contractions, and that leads to cervical dilation and ultimately delivery. If you're coming to the hospital for an elective induction, then your body's already done that prep work. It's already ripe and ready. And then all we have to do is start an IV, put Pitocin in your IV, which Pitocin and oxytocin are the same thing. Your body doesn't perceive a difference between the two, and it causes your uterus to contract. And then ultimately those contractions get more intense and more frequent, leading to cervical dilation and again delivery. A lot of people are afraid of Pitocin because they've heard that it hurts more than spontaneous labor. And actually it doesn't hurt more, it just hurts faster. And what I mean by that is if you go into spontaneous labor, there's like a nice curve where you start with very irregular, uncomfortable contractions, and you work your way up slowly to the ones that are every 2 to 3 minutes and really, really intense. Now, Pitocin just kind of takes the beginning stages out of that, and you kind of go from 0 to 60 faster, and your body doesn't have time to acclimate to the pain. So the perception is that it hurts more, but ultimately, whether it's spontaneous labor or induced labor, it's going to hurt just the same in the end. Contractions need to be every 2 to 3 minutes and be intense enough to get your cervix changing. So, some people do say, yes, that Pitocin makes you hurt more, but if you're planning on an epidural, you don't really have to worry about that. The beauty of an epidural is that it takes pain away. Now, not pressure sensation, you might still feel pressure, but you won't feel pain, and you can get it as long as you're having regular contractions, and they don't need to be super intense. I always tell my patients the right time to get an epidural is about the time when you feel like you would take a Tylenol for a headache. So we ask you a lot at the hospital, like on a scale from 0 to 10. If 10's like, surgery with no anesthesia, maybe you're like a 4 or 5. If you have a headache and you're deciding, I want to take some Tylenol so it's not going to get worse, that would be about the right time to get an epidural. There have been lots of studies done to prove the epidurals slow labor down, and there's lots of studies out there that show that labor speeds it up, and it just kind of depends on the circumstances. In real practice, I've probably seen more instances where epidurals speed labor up, and it's really not going to slow you down as long as you're having good regular contractions. But if we gave you an epidural the second you walked in the door, and that was the first thing we did to you, and we started Pitocin after, we would have a hard time getting your body started. So the best thing to do is wait till you've been on Pitocin for a little while. You're hurting just a little bit, like I said, about to the point where you take a Tylenol if it was for a headache. And then you should be just fine. Your labor should progress nicely. And of course, your doctors and nurses are going to be there to help you and answer any questions you have. I hope the very best for you, and congratulations ahead of time. If you have any other questions for me in the future, feel free to ask them on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Intermountain Moms, and recommend us to your friends and family too.